Fantastic.
So, interestingly, the roles those people are playing, it's either the role of a mediator or the role of an arbitrator, but we just don't call them arbitrators or mediators.
That's a very enlightening. I had never actually saw it that way. I think we should explore that more and give them those titles so that we know that a lot of
Exactly.
a lot of the verdict they come down with are obviously binding.
And then we have a lot more less, cases.
Yes, cases of somebody
Yeah.
killing, uncle killing one nephew or niece or whatever it is. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go on a short break. As soon as we're back for the commercial break, the conversation continues. And I'm excited about the second half of our conversation, which is an area I want to believe that you yourself will be looking forward to. It has to do with documentation and title documents. Please stay with us.
Experience unlimited super-fast internet access from Entel 4G. Entel. Live more.
You're welcome back. This is Business Matters, and if you've just joined us, we are in the studio with Mrs. Olamide Elizabeth Adeleye, and then we've been looking at business development in real estate, the role of the law. Before this time, we've explored several topics as regards to the property rights. We've looked at the role of arbitration in helping to resolve a lot of challenges that comes up in terms of transactions and engagement. This particular focus right now is one area that I'm very excited about. I know you're working on a book which is on real estate investment, trying to doing it right as the case might be. However, a lot of concerns for a lot, and especially my audience, has to do with documentation, title documents. We hear all kinds of documents here and there, and people oftentimes are confused. And so when we wonder what exactly is the difference between excision, right, if I got that right, and the gazette, we're looking at the C of O, we hear lease, we hear deed of assignment and the rest of that. Could you help us throw more light with what are the difference with all of this, and what exactly should I be looking out to in terms of documentation as a property owner or somebody who wants to invest in real estate?
Thank you very much. This is a very key question when it comes to real estate investments. The quality of your title documents says a whole lot about the investments and says a whole lot about the potentials as well. So we have different titles when it comes to properties. We have what we call the excision, which, so I'm going to list them as not in order of priority.
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I'm going to list them in order of priority, I would say the C of O and the registered deed of assignment, would come first.
Yeah,
and
because there's a confusion, because sometimes you want to buy a property and somebody will tell you that if you don't have a C of O, all right, that property itself cannot be compensated for, especially when you have government, you want to create a road or something, and so you have to pull down certain houses, and somebody will tell you that if you don't have this particular C of O, there's no compensation for you. So some of us are a little bit concerned that should I not get properties, landed properties, whatever it is, that actually comes with a C of O? Is a C of O the most important of all of those title documents?
That's actually quite erroneous.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not only a C of O that vests you with that right to government compensation. A registered deed of assignment will do a similar thing as well. We give you similar rights. So if you have your deed of assignment and it is registered, when we say registered, it's been perfected. You have the governor's consent. It's on the same level with the C of O. Now, if you have a deed of assignment that is not registered, and you bought that property from somebody with a C of O, and you want access to that compensation, you have to go via the seller of the property to you who has the original title. Wonderful. Because that is the only person recognizable by the state as the authentic owner of the title.
So does it mean if I buy a land, for example, and the person has a C of O and I have a 99-year tenure, and then buying it off that person with C of O, I'm giving a deed of assignment.
Yes.
Now I go ahead and perfect the deed of assignment. So at the point of perfection, I get the government consent or
Yes.
governor's consent, pardon me.
Yeah.
So at that level, does it not mean that there are two title documents on that land? The person who has this C of O, and then you that eventually has come down with the government consent?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
So at that point, the registered deed of assignment over that particular land with C of O overrides the C of O.
Okay.
That is
okay.
the only title document that will be recognized at the land registry.
Okay.
As long as it is registered. If it is not registered, that is where the danger is. And that's why we encourage people to register their title documents. And one thing I also want to say about compensation is that these days, when people want their deed of assignments prepared, they want to falsify the actual value of the land. But they don't realize that if there's a problem with it in the future, now the calculation for the compensation that the person would be getting will be based on the value imputed in the deed of assignment. So if they have grossly undervalued it because they want to be able to reduce the assessment payable, then they are shooting themselves in the foot. So
now, Olamide, because of time, we're going to be concluding this conversation. But before we do that, I need to be able to ask you this particular question. So I'm acquiring a flat or an apartment in a block of flats. And I'm made to understand that I need my own document in case I want to use that for bank loan, as the case might be. And then there are blocks of flats, as the case is. What happens in that regard in terms of the due diligence as well as title documents?
Okay, so when it comes to due diligence, it depends on what the title is. If it's a C of O, it's a good title. If it's a deed of assignment and it's not registered, then you have more to do with regards to the due diligence. And it's always important to ensure that if it's a deed of assignment is registered, you have the governor's consent for that. And then what you will have, if it's a C of O, what you will be issued will be a deed of assignment. And if it's a registered deed of assignment, then you get your own deed of assignment covering that particular apartment.
That particular apartment itself. So I'm not concerned about the other apartment owners, as the case.
No, you're not concerned about the other apartments. In a situation where we have several buildings together, like several bungalows together, what you get will be a deed of partition.
Okay.
A deed of partition, which is registrable also at the lands registry. And don't forget that there's something that is very key. Every land right now falls under the 1978 Land Use Act. It's very key to know how many years are left from the
99 years.
From when the 99 years was granted. That is very key. Some would have like just 30 years, which means after 30 years, what happens? So you need to check what are the terms of the purchase. If you're purchasing the property, what are the terms, what are the conditions, what are the renewal terms? So is it reverting immediately to the property owner, or they are just asking for merely some renewal payments and then you are back as the valid owner of the property?
Now, what happens in a situation whereby I want to put out a mini industry and I go to a particular place, let's say at Igbefor, as a case, well, then the next day the government comes in and then knocks down my investment and tells me that, the land of which I acquired from the indigents, is no longer tenable. What perhaps would have been responsible for that kind of scenario?
Okay, so two things available. Now, if you have your valid title documents, I would assume that the person did the proper due diligence. Now, you have your valid title document, is registered. You have a right to be compensated.
Okay.
Now, but we have, more often than not, it's a case of people buying properties without conducting due diligence. If they had conducted some kind of due diligence, if the property had been charted at the lands registry, they would have realized that, okay, it falls under maybe some kind of government acquisition. It's not only acquired, some lands are not just acquired, some are even committed for a particular project.
Okay.
With those ones, there's nothing you can do about it. Some are just acquired but not committed.